I come downstairs, I get a bowl of cereal, I start eating it, and my wife and I have an interaction, and she just goes, "Drew, what is wrong with you?"
I know what that felt like for me. What was the depression like for you?
Some of my staff said there seemed to be a darkness around your office.
How do you have a theological view of what's taking place there?
Hey, I'm going to put a thorn in your side, bringing me to a deeper understanding of a dependence, but more properly on the grace of God.
Welcome to Grace and the Gravity. This is the podcast where pastors you don't know from churches you don't attend tell true stories of good news from right here on planet Earth. My name is Tim, and I'll be your guide today as we spend some time with a really good, really old friend of mine, Drew. Drew is a pastor out in Virginia, although we did a little ministry together in California many, many, many years ago, several lifetimes ago, it feels like. But Drew and I go way back, and he's got a story that I resonate with quite a bit, and that I suspect a lot of our listeners are really going to connect with as well. We're going to talk about that today, but before we do that, Drew, welcome to Grace and the Gravity. How are you coming in today?
Well, I'm coming good just because it's good to see your face and hang out with you. So thanks for that. And had a bunch of meetings this morning with great people, with my elders, a couple of my elders, and then a good pastor buddy of mine. So feeling refreshed, and I'm not preaching this weekend because I'm going on vacation with my wife for our 20-year anniversary. And so you got me in a good spot, bro. Good spot.
Love it, man. Well, hey, I do want to say really quick, when we started this podcast, I explicitly said I don't ever want this to become a podcast where we're telling people, hey, we got this guest today, make sure to buy their book. But the reason that I said that is because I never expected to have a guest on here who actually wrote a book. And Drew has, in fact, written a book. It's called Faithful. You can get it on Amazon. Is that right?
Yep.
We're fine booksellers everywhere.
Yeah.
So you didn't know I was going to plug your book today.
I did not. I appreciate that.
So Drew, it's so good to see you, man. I know that you have been through a lot, especially in the cross country move that you made several years ago, and in becoming a lead pastor of a church. And I know that our stories kind of intersect a little bit with regards to some mental health issues and things like that. But I would love to just give you some space, man, to tell your story. Where do you want to start with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think starting out with just realizing that sometimes when you hear stories of people with mental health, there is an assumption of kind of tragedy or something, horrible in their life. And I would just say that there's not like a particular moment that it was that something happened to me that defined this mental state that really got me down. And so I know sometimes when we look at people with mental health issues, it's like, well, what's that thing, or what was that change? And sometimes that's not what it is at all. And you can look at life and be like, there's no reason that Drew should have the issues he does. But I do.
I connect with that so much, man, because I've straight up talked to my therapist and been like, can you find some unknown trauma that like makes me the way I am? And it isn't there. And it's like so frustrating. I mean, not that I would wish that I had trauma in my past, but it's just confusing to be like, where is this coming from? Like, why am I the way I am? It's actually comforting for me to hear someone else share that experience, and we can kind of commiserate together and wonder at what God's doing there.
Yeah.
But mental health issues kind of became a part of your story, if I understand correctly, after you took on the lead pastor role at a church. Is that right?
That is when it kind of culminated. So 2020 was a great year for everybody, as I know.
Absolutely. So much fun.
So during our 2020, navigating everything that the world had never experienced before, on top of political unrest, all that stuff, and just feeling the weight and burden of trying to lead in the chaos from all areas of life. Things like discussions with people where I'd sit with somebody in the morning and they would just with great tenacity tell me some belief on this side of the spectrum of all the things that we were talking about. And then in the afternoon, I'd sit with somebody and they would be on the complete opposite side and talk with me with tenacity and vigor about how frustrated they were with people on that side of the spectrum or perspective. And just sitting in a place where I felt venom was being spewed everywhere. Everybody was eager to be mad at everybody, and trying to navigate that and pastor people and encourage them in the midst of feeling like no matter what you do, out of love, people are going to be angry with you and write you emails about how wrong and dumb you are. So,
yeah. And initially though, does it feel like everybody assumes obviously my pastor's on my side?
Oh, 100%. That's the weirdest thing about those conversations is a lot of times in my pastoral conversations, it's just listening. And so 100%, it was like, of course, like they wouldn't, there's not even a question.
Yeah. You're here to have me agree with you and pat you on the back and
yes,
tell you you're right.
Yeah. So that with other stuff just led to anxiety increased. These are words, even some of the stuff that I say now, it's retrospectively, like I didn't know at the time, but looking back on, like, I'd pace the house on days that I have off, and I would always be looking for something to do, and just this sense of what I now know is kind of a sense of OCD, that when anxiety is not responded to properly in my life, and the way that I tend to respond to anxiety is I just find more stuff to do to keep me busy. And while it provides temporary relief because I feel like I'm doing something, it actually never solves the issue, and it compounds the anxiety, which then leads to depression. And so
what does the experience of anxiety feel like for you? Like, how does that, because I know some people say, oh, it's like a tension in my chest or, headache or whatever. Like, what does that feel like for you when you were encountering it?
Yeah, again, in the moment, I didn't know. I just thought that this was life. So the things that I'm able to say to you in response to that only happened after I got on medication and was able to see, oh my gosh, that is not normal. So it felt like, physically, it felt like pressure at times. Mentally, it just felt like an inability to stop thinking about stuff. The only way that I could do that is like complete checkout. So like watching a movie or just being like, leave me alone. There was no in-between space. It felt like every decision was a big decision.
Yeah.
So those are some of the indicators. And then I'm having this mental battle that, again, I thought it was normal, but realizing an existing of your mind that always is fighting between like kind of just leave me alone and being the person I know I want to be, like that's not normal.
You mentioned medication, right? And so my guess is there's probably some people listening who hear that and immediately are like, I'm not here for this. Like, I'm out, So speak to those people for a second. I mean, what would you want someone to, like, when you encounter someone who's like, no, I'm not having the medication conversation, man. Like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Like, what would you counsel them to consider, even just as you're telling your story? What would you want to make sure that they're able to hear?
Well, the first thing I do is I start out with questions. Where's that coming from? What's it rooted in? Because some people have good reason for not wanting medication if they have a family history where, addiction or something where they tried medication and that ended up making things worse. Even as I was getting on a medication, my counselor said, we're going to try this. We'll see if it works. It might make it worse. And so, but let's work this thing out. So the first thing I'd say is, what is creating that pushback? And there might be some legitimate reasons that need to be addressed. And the nuances of each of those reasons needs to be addressed to the person with the issues that they have. On the other hand, I would also say that as a pastor, I've sat with a lot of people and who have taken mental health meds and have been terribly embarrassed about it and have said, man, this is really something that I'm ashamed about. And I've sat with them for years and said, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Like, it's okay. But Tim, as soon as I started, I was terribly embarrassed. And so even though I'd spoken so often, like, there's no reason to be embarrassed, I understand that as soon as you become that, it becomes this sense of like, oh man, this is something I can't share. And I would say from my story and from others that I've heard is this is a tool that God can use to bring healing. And we are both spiritual people and physical people. In the outside world, the spiritualness of us tends to be minimized. And it's like, let's just take meds and fix everything. Unfortunately, in the church world, sometimes the spiritual is overemphasized. And I think we need to have brothers and sisters around us. And we got to do some deep spiritual work. Like, let's not just go to the quick fix that actually isn't fixing stuff. On the other hand, there might be some people, as you said, who are like, I can never do that. And I think having wise, loving, God-fearing people in our lives that are like, hey, I see you doing the spiritual work. I see you doing the hard work. We've prayed over you. We've done that work, and it's not. What if God is giving us this tool for healing? And so that's kind of how I would navigate it. And that's exactly how my story came about.
Yeah, so let's hear your story, man. So you become a pastor and you move across country to Virginia. You're originally from the Bay Area, so you move out there. You take the pastorate. 2020 hits, which is a total blast for everybody. We're all living life. And what was the tipping point for you? Like, at what point did you realize something isn't right here?
Yeah. Well, my gracious and loving wife encouraged throughout this time as she saw me being heavily burdened with all this stuff and really it weighing on me, encouraged me over and over and over. Hey, what about counseling? What about counseling? I think a conversation, it basically came out, my wife encouraged me, a conversation isn't going to hurt. And so started just talking with a counselor on a regular basis and saying, here's what I'm feeling. Here's the stresses of being a pastor. And he was a former pastor. And so we'd meet regularly. And I could tell you, he said to me, Drew, he said, I can't tell you how many people I meet with. And to get them to do one thing takes months of me just, how about this? How about this? How about this? And he said, every week, you come back, and I do. And I said, okay, you told me to do this. I did this. I did this. I did this. What's next? And he'd give me a few other things or work deeper. Okay, I did this. I did this. I'm continuing to do. What's next? Like, just give me the tools. Let me get after this. Let me solve this. Let me get past this. Like, let's go. And I did it. And during this time, I had scheduled a 2.5-day retreat with just me and God out at the beach at a house alone where I could do the things I love of dreaming and just with God, just me and him. Let's go. This is going to be great. And so I spent that time with him, and I get back in the afternoon, wake up the next morning, 3 months of counseling, 2.5 days, just spending time with God, should be refreshed. I come downstairs, I get a bowl of cereal, I start eating it, and my wife and I have an interaction where I don't even remember what happened, but I spit some venom. My attitude was sour and she just looks at me and she just goes, Drew, what is wrong with you? And the Lord used those powerful words of rebuke to it just crushed me in a good way. Not then. I didn't feel good at all.
Sure, yeah.
In fact, I finished my bowl, I went upstairs and I cried myself to sleep and woke up a couple hours later and with the question lingering in my mind, what is wrong with me? Like, what is wrong with me?
Dude, so let me ask this, man, because so you've been in counseling, you go on this solo retreat with the Lord, you come back, you get a good night's sleep, wake up, you're eating breakfast. How is it that all those things are working in your favor and still you're primed to kind of, you know, bite your wife's head off when she walks in the room?
Yeah. I don't know.
That's probably as honest an answer as you could give, man. I mean, like, why are any of us the way we are? Why can none of us be the person that we sense we're supposed to be?
Right. Well, and the hurt, God took away any opportunity for me to make it about her. You know, a lot of times we get in arguments with our wives and we justify, well, that's because or that's because, you know, whatever. We can put the blame on them, but there's nothing that my wife could have done to make me think, well, but you. Mm-hmm. And so this moment of like, oh, it's all on me. There is something wrong. There's something that I need to deal with that I've been trying to, and I can't get over it. So at that point in time, a couple days later, met with my counselor, and he said, Drew, again, you've done everything I've asked. We've been doing this for a number of months. The situation that you're in, what it produced does not make any sense. How would you feel about medication?
So what's going on in your head? Like that idea's tossed your way. Hey, Drew, what do you think about trying some medication? I could imagine a scenario where there's maybe some alarms going off in your head or some insecurities and stuff. What was the experience like of having someone who cares for you and someone who knows you really well say, hey, you might benefit from some medicinal help here?
Yeah, there's one immediate reaction and then kind of a lingering one that happened after. And the immediate one was the question that my wife asked is, what is wrong with me? And so when he said it, I was like, I have been fighting this battle with the help of multiple people. And what is wrong with me? If you think through your Christian lens, and he's a Christian counselor, loves the Lord. If you, through your wisdom and your guidance, can look into my life with the expertise you have and suggest this, maybe it can answer partly what's wrong with me. So there was an entrusting of myself to this person. The other thing was a worry that this becomes a happy pill. I know some people listening will understand. I have the joy of the Lord, even in the midst of this time. I am confident in who he is. I'm confident in what he's done. Like, my faith is not shaken. And so I'm like fully confident in Jesus, and yet inside. And so my worry was, okay, now I'm going to take this pill and this is going to be my happy pill. In other words, in order to be happy, like a drug, I'm just like, well, things are kind of, oh, okay. Things are all fine. And so there'd be,
which, by the way, if that's the way mental health medication worked, why? Who wouldn't take it, you know? But yeah, I think that's not really exactly how it works. But it sounds like also that wasn't really what you were looking for. Yeah,
I mean, I wanted to be a normal person and deal with stuff in a way that it wasn't so weighted in a way that impacted me so negatively. And so there was a worry, like, okay, now I'm going to be dependent on this to be a person that my wife, my kids, my friends have known me to be, but something has changed in my disposition where that happy Drew is only there because really it's not Drew who's happy, it's this pill. By God's grace, as I started medication, what I realized is I had to totally reframe my idea of medication to, I call it my normal pill. It sets a baseline back to zero, where, in fact, in this weird way, is when I got angry with my wife the first time after taking medication, and when I got frustrated with my kids, and I was actually, in this weird way, I was actually relieved, because I was like, okay, this is not something that makes me ignore the issues that I have. It allows me to deal with them properly.
Yeah. So for you, it wasn't like, oh, this medication is just going to completely numb you out and put like an artificial smile on your face.
Yeah.
It ended up being something that maybe helped bring you back to like a baseline kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. So two significant things happened in just the most normal yet unbelievably profound ways for me that made me realize how helpful this medication was. And number one is I remember driving home from work, and I can tell you exactly where I was at maybe a mile and a half. I can see the light on the street that I was driving under, and I had this wild thought, and it's so normal and so unwild, which hopefully emphasizes how wild this is. And I had this thought. I was like, I'm okay. And I was like, what does that mean? And that sense of weightedness and pressure, and like I'm leaving work, which is my job's stressful, but I am not burdened with that. Just the simple idea of like, I'm going home and I'm not feeling like, ugh, which I didn't even know I was feeling prior because that was normal.
Right.
I mean, it was so crazy to me. I was like, whoa, I'm okay. The other thing, and this one makes me choke up most of the times when I share it, is for the length of being a dad. And my daughter just yesterday turned 17. But since being a father, there has been a battle inside of me between the dad I want to be, a dad who's engaged, who's patient, who's loving, who plays with his kids. I love to play. And a dad who regularly wanted my kids just to leave me alone. And I didn't want to do stuff with them. And so here's a couple days after starting to take meds, I was by the garage door, and my son was standing right by the door, and he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, Daddy, you want to go play catch?" And without hesitation, I was like, "Yeah." And as soon as I said yeah, without any reservation or hesitation, it was like this. Yeah. Whoa. I could respond to my son the way that I desired to without the fight of like, no. I was eager to. The one that I wanted to have was actually aligned with the response that I had to him. And I was just like, this is crazy. And this emphasizes the point of the normalcy. You know, it's not like I was like, oh yeah, son, let's go. Oh, this is going to be great. It was just like, I want to be this dad, and my actions and my heart are aligned with what I want to be, and I can respond the way I always want to respond. Now, there's still times where the kids ask me to play. I'm like, nah, just leave me alone. Yeah. But that response was more of a normal reaction of an eagerness to engage. And so those two things, very not major, but absolutely huge in just a simple response or a thought that was like, oh, this allows me to think more the way that I want to think.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit, maybe before even the medication, and just ask you, because you had mentioned that your anxiety was essentially becoming depression. In my story, you know, I had a long season of depression, required some medication, some counseling, stuff like that. But I know what that felt like for me. And I know how I could tell that this is not right. This isn't normal, you know. What for you was sort of the indicator that you mentioned the sort of outburst that with your wife and stuff, but what more specifically was the depression like for you?
Handling and feeling the weight of everything much more significantly than normal. So when people would email me about whatever issue they have with however I'm handling something or whatever, that wouldn't be something that properly hurts. You know, again, we're not saying, oh, no big deal, but that would just consume my mind. Oh my goodness. That would just have me in a spiral. I could tell you that some of my staff said there seemed, and this is a huge indictment, there seemed to be a darkness around your office.
Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
I'd want to shut the door. When people, like, my starting point would be just like frustration. And there wasn't a lightness about me. So you've known me a long time. I like to have fun and be a doofus. And a lot of that was lost. Just the normal, we're here to have fun and laugh at ourselves. It was just, there was a darkness that, a dark cloud that followed me everywhere. And even like intimacy with my wife. That was something that was, I want more and never satisfied and frustrated. And now I know there's a difference between guys and girls, and that's normal, but this was a particular sense of like intensity with even our intimacy and conversation with kids where it was lack of patience and a lot of the dissonance between the fruit of the Spirit and really working on that, and yet finding myself falling further and further away from it, even though I wanted it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does to me, and I suspect it will to some of the people tuning in as well. I wonder if to the outsider, to this person who's never had that experience, if they're like, "What are you talking about?" You know. But I guess what I'm curious about is you know your vocation is pastoral. You're lead pastor for church, and so you're, in that sense, you're kind of a public theologian in of a sort. So I have this curiosity of like, how do you make sense theologically, or even pastorally of like, hey, I was kind of mean and nasty, and there was a darkness around me, and then someone prescribed me a pill and that went away. Like I can make pretty clear sense of that, like from a psychological or like a chemical perspective. How do you have a theological view of what's taking place there? Sorry, I did not prime you for this question. This is off the cuff, but I'm super curious to hear what you have to say about it.
This is me processing stuff right now. So anybody listening, reach out to me and tell me where I got it wrong. But I think when I look at my life, relatively, I've lived for God pretty well. And I wonder if the need for medication is God's graciousness in humbling me to help me understand, like, we all have our issues, and so do you, Drew. And bringing me to a deeper understanding of a dependence, yes, somewhat on this pill, but more properly on the grace of God. Because here's my life. That three months of counseling that I had intensely is a microcosm of my life. You tell me what to do, I'm going to get it done. And this carries over into my relationship with God. It's like, okay, give me the word, give me your guidance. Like, I'm gonna let me get it done. And though I preach, we're not saved by our works, we're saved by the grace of God. Yet oftentimes, and this is still current wrestling I'm doing, is the input equals the output. And so, man, I'm gonna do this, and I'm going to accomplish it. And I think that there's a humbling that God has brought me to realize, like, hey, I'm gonna put a thorn in your side because you need to better realize that you can sit for months with a counselor, and that your work is not going to solve this. And so I have to have this outside thing. So it is a micro gospel in the healing that God provides. And then I think the other thing, the second part of that, is that the story that God has then given me, as I told you, my counselor said, you don't have to tell anybody. And then a few months later, I was sitting with a buddy, and he was describing, like, very much what I was going through. And I felt the Spirit was like, you have got to share this. Is that now it's a tool that I can share, as I am right now, to hopefully help bring others to understanding the opportunity God has given us through medication. And again, when I say medication, I'm not saying that's stop one. but it's a process of discovery that might lead you to a place of healing that you never even thought of.
Bro, I thank you for sharing that. And I hope that brings some hope and maybe even some comfort to some of the people who are listening. I know it comforts me, and my healing from mental health issues. And, it's not a straight up and to the right trajectory. There's ups and downs, but my healing came after years, bro, of like counseling, workbooks, diet and exercise, medication. I mean, like mindfulness exercise, like you name it. What ended up being what actually like kind of helped get me over the hump and really to a place of healing was a kind of a niche brain treatment that I received. I did it's called transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Oh, I've heard of this. Yep.
It's crazy, man. Like I was like, this is not going to work, and was delighted to discover like I had a very similar experience to you of like I was sitting at a coffee shop, and I remember it was like the clouds parted, and it was like, oh my gosh, I feel okay. Like, wow. This is so weird. I don't remember the last time I felt okay. Wow. But all that is to say, like I struggled for a long time of like, God, why this? Why not the prayer? Why not the intercession? Why not the medication? Why not the counseling? Like, why this? And I don't know. I really don't. But I also don't care. Like, this is where God brought healing, and why this and not that, I have no idea. But thank God. Like, thank God that something worked.
Well, I think, as the story continues, not just for helping people who might need some mental health intervention through medication, but also as I share with the congregation, and this, and pastors listening, it's weird. I try to humanize myself as much as I can. Like I tell our congregation all the time, like, I'm just one of us. I just have the benefit of using the gifts God given me to preach. Like, let's stop this. Oh, you're all, like life is so much better for you and you're like closer to God. I'm like, we're the body of believers. I'm just one of us. I just get to do this. And I've found with the exposing of and the conversation, like I even said a couple weeks ago that I was struggling with some stuff, not preaching from a place of like, listen, everything's working out, everything's smooth on my side, so take it from me.
I don't know what your problem is, but I got it all put together.
Yeah. So it's also given that opportunity just to say, despite the times where I'm just wanting to dig a hole and bury myself in, I still believe that God is awesome and amazing, and I love him. And despite the fact that this week was crushing for me and I'm wrestling with stuff, like, he's still risen from the grave, and I can hold both the frustrations and tensions of life and my sin that I need to confess, and the grace and glory and amazingness of God.
Not that this surprises me, because I know you, and because you and I kind of came up in a common circle where transparency was really prioritized, So I'm curious for you as a pastor, like you're open with this stuff. You talk about your mental health struggles. You talk about the fact that medication was a benefit to you. How has that impacted your ministry to kind of come at it from a place of vulnerability and like, hey, this is my reality, and I'm happy to share it with you? What does that do?
Yeah, to your point, the leaders that we've been under have just been amazing with authenticity. So it's very normal for me. What that does is when I have conversations with somebody and they're like, oh man, the fact that you share, thank you so much. It's such a blessing. It kind of shakes me from normal. I'm like, oh, I guess this isn't normal. Because we've been under such great leadership. And so what I hope and pray it does, I think it does, is it helps people see that the church is not about Drew and how he has things put together and how great he is. The church is about a God who is loving and perfect and awesome. And the dude that usually preaches is a messed up guy, but for the grace of God is preaching with enthusiasm about how good that God is.
Yeah.
And so may it minimize me and say, man, I really like him. Well, I'm glad you like me, but do not follow Drew. And do not think like, oh, this is the 5 steps to be like Drew. It's about Jesus, and the one who is perfect is him. And so I think the way that it affects and impacts the ministry is it also hopefully helps people see me as, again, just another human that has his issues, but there's a God who is greater than me.
I so love what you're describing here, because for me early on in ministry, it was a lot of, especially doing youth ministry, sort of like, I want to be the guy. I want to be on a pedestal so that people can look to me and say, wow, he's living so faithfully. Like, I want to be like him. And then they can find Jesus through that. And I got to tell you, bro, like, it didn't work. Like, it didn't work. And people would be disappointed routinely by me. And so what I found is so much more effective and so much like more life-giving for me is not this attitude of like, hey, look at Tim, look how God's using him, but more of like, boy, look at Tim. Like, God can even use a guy like that. Like, come on, if that's the God that exists, like, then he must be real. Cause dude, I'm a mess. Like, and I say that with a smile on my face. Like, this is not sort of self-deprecation hour. It's just being honest. Like, I have problems, man. Like, I'm not the guy I want to be all the time. Probably not the guy I want to be most of the time. And yet there is this God who loves me and is so near to me and is so patient with me. Like, don't be like me. Let's go to the foot of the cross together, because what we'll find there is healing and acceptance.
Yes.
And dude, I feel like you and I are, we should do ministry together, bro.
Yes. Oh man, so good.
So here's what I'm curious about, man. As you look back on this season of dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression, kind of coming to terms with what that means for you, what kind of meaning are you making of that? What lenses are you able to see that through now that maybe you couldn't have seen earlier on? One
of the things that I learned through this is God had to move us away from family. And though he moved us to Real Life Christian Church for them, as God does, he also did it for us. And he had to get me away from some of my comforts that I can look back on of other times of anxiety and some depression, that because family was there, because friends were there, it allowed me to kind of smooth past that and get past it without actually dealing with it. And so on top of the entire story, being away from friends and family made it so that I couldn't go back to the things that would allow me to put a Band-Aid on the gaping wound. God had to make it as bad as it was for as long as it was for me to get the actual help that actually got me to what I truly and deeply needed. And so one of the prayers that I pray, and I think one of our former pastors used to pray this, and I make this a terrifying, semi-regular prayer. But God, would you be as harsh as you need to be, and as gentle as you can be, to make me the man that you want me to be? Whew. Yeah.
Well, I mean, not only is that kind of been my experience and the experience of other people that I know and trust, but it's a very biblical pattern, right? Of like God making, or God allowing or making, I don't know, however you want to theologize it, things bad, so that there can be healing and there can be return to joy. I mean, I'm in my own Bible reading right now. I'm in Judges, and that's the whole story. Every chapter of Judges is exactly that. It's like, and then it got real bad, and then the people realized something was wrong, and then God sent rescue, and then they returned, so that it's funny to me that now, thousands of years later, we're still beating our head against that same rhythm,
And yet there is this tension. And so these troubles come on, and you're like, but God, like, what is going on? And to sit back and say, oh, there's something deeper working than just my actions. there is some heart surgery that needs to be done, and that's not fun, and that's a lot harder to identify.
Yeah, it's easier to hide too, especially for those of us in ministry, like to hide it behind kind of the veil of holiness. Like, I'm a professional Christian, baby. Like, I'm good. And meanwhile, we're dying inside. I mean, one of the things that I love about your transparency, your vulnerability, your authenticity is just that, like, it creates so much less space for that stuff to fester hidden. You know, like if you make a pattern and a lifestyle out of being like rigorously honest with people, obviously there's a difference between being honest and sort of like dumping on your congregation or whatever. I mean, occasionally I've seen the pulpit become sort of a therapy session for the person preaching, and I don't know that that's wise or healthy for anybody, but having a healthy attitude of just like, you guys are going to get the real me, because that's all I have to bring to the table. And that's all Jesus wants from me.
Yeah.
It just creates so much less space for that stuff to hide.
Yeah.
And that's what I get from you, man. Like every time I have the privilege of sitting with you and chatting or having a phone call or whatever, I get the sense of like, I encountered the real Drew. Like I encountered the Drew that Jesus gets to encounter. And that feels like a privilege and something worth passing on to the people that you get to shepherd.
Yeah. Well, thanks for acknowledging that and liking Messy Drew.
Yeah. Well, hey, one more question I want to have. I want to hit on before we kind of move to a close here is for the pastor or the leader or the individual listening who is maybe resonating with some of this and going, man, maybe I'm depressed, maybe I'm anxious, maybe I got some stuff that's gone unaddressed. What would your counsel be for them? What would your lived wisdom be that you would offer to them?
Oh man, I cannot encourage this enough. Do you have people in your life who can really speak, who love Jesus, but can really speak truth into your life? Because there is a lot of things that I didn't see, but my wife saw, but a counselor saw, but a friend saw. And maybe even say to them invitationally, rather than them being like, what is wrong with you? Mm-hmm. But invitationally say, hey, is there anything in my behavior that concerns you? Is there any, going to them, that feels, I know when people offer their critique of me and I want to fight, but if you were to go to them and be like, I'm really struggling. Can you, is there anything that you see that concerns me? That sometimes settles the soul to receive it a little bit better.
Yes.
And then my perspective is just because they're called Christian counselors does not mean they counsel from a Christian perspective. And so making sure that they are, again, God-fearing, Bible-based, people who take the spiritual reality for real and not just, I've given myself the title of a Christian counselor, but I'm going to use all solely secular tools to process things with you. So
that's so good, man. And just to kind of seize the opportunity for a plug here. I mean, that's kind of what we get to do at the Activated team. I mean, our whole, our mission statement is to courageously love leaders in their churches. And we come from a place of everyone on our team has worked in a church setting and on ministry staff. Many of us as pastors. And that actually is what brought me to the team. Is I was on the receiving end of that. And I was like, gosh, to have someone who understands ministry and can speak into my life and can say, honestly, some hard things. Like the coach that I was working with on the Activated team said some stuff to me I didn't want to hear, but I needed to hear it. And I needed to hear it from someone who had invested enough in me to have earned that right. And so I just want to totally affirm what you're saying, that to have an outside voice, especially someone outside of your church context,
yes,
who isn't going to have to show up and sit in the pew on a Sunday morning, but gets to just speak in from the outside. That can be extremely valuable and certainly has been for me. So Drew, a couple questions, man, that I just like to ask everybody if I get a chance to. The first question is ministry still worth it for you?
Well, it has to be because God called me into it. So I've got no choice right now. But with that, I one of my mentors, there's oftentimes in the ministry world where I dream about not being in ministry. I would like to make a lot more money. I'd like to not have people angry with me as much. I'd like to kind of leave work at work. There's been plenty of times. And my mentor has reminded me many of times. He says, Drew, I can assure you that you would hate that. The grass is not greener on the other side. Mm-hmm. And so coming back to, wait a minute. I have the privilege, though in times it is so hard and the devil does not like it and I am under attack and all that stuff. Like I get to, remember, in the midst of all the emails and the frustration, I get to use my gifts for the greatest cause in all of human history. And what I get to do is eternal. Like, wow. And
I've said this before, but there is something about ministry that kind of ruins you for like selling cars or I mean, whatever. Selling cars is a totally respectable thing, but
right.
Man, when you've helped people work through the heaviest issues they're ever going to face, there's something about doing anything else that just feels like, why would I bother?
Right. Man, and this breaks my heart for so many people. When we think about people serving in the church and it feels like, well, it's something I need to fulfill. I'm like, oh man, if you only knew what it's like to be used by God with the gifts that you have. And every single person has gifts that God's given them. Like, it's not oh man, I got to do this. It is a thrilling co-partnership with God in working for his kingdom. So yes, ministry is worth it.
That was a robust answer, man. And I believe you. And so it makes me all the more excited to ask this final question. Is Jesus still good news to you?
What other choice do I have? Absolutely. In the midst of all the tension, all the heartache, all the pain, everything, man, I'm so thankful that there's a grounded reality of a Savior who came to this earth, died on the cross for my sins, and rose again. That this life isn't just getting through stuff and seeing what we can acquire until we die. That this life isn't just a roll of the dice and see what comes of it. But if there is a Christ who came to this earth to redeem us, all these things are redeemed. And all these things will one day be looked back upon. Here's what I hope happens. And this is why Jesus is worth it. I think he might just sit down with a timeline of our lives and be like this. Are you ready for this? And we'll lean in and he'll start to unravel the story of our lives. And every moment that we thought, how in the world could he use that? Why in the world is he doing that? It's going to elevate our awareness of the beauty and the love and how incredible Jesus is, that we are just going to be like, Are you serious? And so Jesus is, and the gospel is so worth it, because all of this mess is not just for the here and now. It's an eternal story of the greatness of God.
That gets me excited, that picture of like Jesus showing us our life and saying, I want you to see it. I mean, it's like, I love a good like Christopher Nolan movie, or, some of the old M. Night Shyamalan movies where it's like in the end, it all comes together. And just the idea that Jesus is this, and the gospel show us like he's a master storyteller, right?
Yeah.
And the idea that he's telling a story with each of our lives and he can't wait to sit down and unpack it for us. Like, come on, man, sign me up for that.
Whew. Yes.
So I would love if you would take the opportunity to pray, man, for some of our listeners. And I'm thinking especially of maybe some of those people out there, the men and women who are maybe just coming to terms with the fact that maybe they may be struggling with some mental health stuff, with some unchecked anxiety, or maybe even some depression. Would you just cover them in prayer and ask that the Lord would begin doing some work for them?
Yeah. Holy Spirit, would you take this prayer, and though it's to you, because of your love, make it personal to the person who feels like this is just a podcast they're tuning into. and instead move through this conversation into the hearts of people, to release them of the lies that will keep them from getting the help that they need, that would release them from the shame and would invite them into something deeper and something redeemed. God, I pray by the power of your Spirit that those who resonated with any moment of the darkness of my story, that they would, maybe if they've lost hope, that theirs could be any different than the darkness, that you would just remind them of your greatness and your love and your compassion, that even in this moment right now, they would sense, feel, and just get hit in the gut with the sense of like, wow, God loves me. And that they would take steps to invite people to speak into their lives. I pray for spouses and friends that maybe have been withholding something and saying something about them needing to get help, that even this week they would be bold and they might hear that and be like, oh man, that's the voice of God calling me to something else. Yeah. And then God, I ask, as I said before, that you would be as harsh as you need to be, but as gentle as you can be in making us the people that you've called us to be. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Excellent. Drew, thank you so much, man, for being here, for sharing your story, and just being open and authentic with us, man. Pray that the people who are listening are blessed. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is Grace and the Gravity. We will see you guys next time.